The mercenary exchange hub of Lho'karr Station floated in the dark gulf between systems, an ugly sphere of metal rings, docking tethers, hazard lights, and the perpetual haze of ship exhaust trails. It was a place where moral lines blurred, where bounties were bought over drinks and grudges settled in gunfire. No government patrolled its corridors, only profit dictated its pulse. Tonight, that pulse quickened. A message had spread across the bulletin walls, projected in shifting holographs. Contract, 3,500,000 credits. Target, Human Special Forces Team Vantage Squad. A bounty that large should have had mercenaries swarming like hungry devils around a drifting corpse. Instead, the board remained strangely untouched, the air around it eerily clear. No one wanted it. Captain Zhor Renn, a four-armed chitin-plated mercenary, commander of the Razka Syndicate, paused mid-stride when he noticed the shimmering red notice was still unclaimed. His antennae twitched with suspicion. 3.5 million credits could fund 2 starcruisers, full armaments, and crew salaries for a year. Yet no one had accepted the job. He clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. "Strange, isn't it?" came a low voice beside him. Zhor turned to see deadliest, a Saurian mercenary with scales the color of midnight oil and a reputation hardened by a dozen wars. Even deadliest kept his distance from the hologram. "You're telling me you haven't taken it?" Zhor asked, baffled. Deadliest chuffed, tail flicking. "I value my life, and the lives of my crew." Zhor eyed him skeptically. "It's a simple elimination contract, not if the target is human, and certainly not if they're human special forces." Zhor's mandibles clicked in disbelief. He'd heard the rumors, of course. Humans were reckless, clever, unpredictable, but worth avoiding entirely? He wasn't sure he bought into that superstition. Deadliest leaned closer, voice low. "Let me tell you something, Captain. A few cycles ago, my old unit took a contract on a human recon officer near the Cobalt Nebula front. One officer, a single human. He tapped one claw on the hologram. We sent 12. Only 2 made it back alive, and not one of us slept without nightmares for months. Humans don't break. They break you. They fight like cornered predators. And special forces? They're the apex of the apex." Zhor didn't reply. Pride kept him from flinching, though something in deadlist's eyes, something haunted, sent a cold unease creeping through his thorax. The hologram pulsed. 3,500,000 credits. Target Vantage Squad. He forced a scoff. "You're afraid of them?" Deadliest nodded without shame. "Yes, and I am not alone." Zhor glanced around. The other mercenaries purposely averted their eyes from the job board. Entire squads, some notorious for taking suicide missions, were pretending the contract didn't exist. Zhor's curiosity sharpened into greed. If no one else would take the bounty, that meant no competition, and no competition meant guaranteed profit. He made his choice. With a decisive gesture of his upper right hand, he tapped his identifier against the floating contract. The board flashed accepted. Deadliest hissed and stepped back. "You fool." Zhor grinned with all 4 mandibles. "We'll see who the fool is when I'm rich enough to buy this station and raise it to scrap." He walked away, leaving Deadliest staring after him, the look on the Saurian's face one of genuine mourning. Middle, the Razka Syndicate's flagship, the Widow's Bite, cut through the void with sharp precision. Its crew, around 30 hardened fighters of various species, readied themselves for pursuit. Their target, Vantage Squad, a human elite special forces unit known mostly through whispers and classified files. Supposedly only 4 members, yet with more confirmed mission completions than entire battalions. Their last known location was the Narrow Veil, a region of tangled asteroid clusters and abandoned mining installations. Zhor gathered his team in the command deck. Holograms flickered with star maps and recon photos of armored humans moving like shadows through war-torn cities. "These are just humans," he said firmly. "Flesh and bone. They bleed. They die." Silence. His second-in-command, Merrick, a towering brute with crystalline skin, rumbled nervously. "Captain, I've heard stories. This squad took down a Grail warlord and his entire guard platoon. Alone." Zhor glared. "Stories meant to scare hatchlings. Our syndicate has defeated better." No one looked convinced. Still, orders were orders. The ship drifted into the Narrow Veil hours later. Metal shards drifted like frozen shrapnel. Abandoned mining rigs hung dead and rusting. and somewhere in that labyrinth, the humans were hiding. Zhor ordered scout drones deployed. One by one, signals flickered across the screens. Then the first drone went silent. Then a second, then 5 more. Zhor frowned. Radiation pockets? Merrick swallowed. We should pull back until The intercom blared. Contact. Something just uncloaked off our port side. The ship trembled as something massive latched onto the hull. Red warning lights bathed the corridor. Zhor dashed toward the external monitors. A sleek, matte black human shuttle clung to the ship like a predatory insect. Small, unassuming, deadly. Breach detected. Deck 3. Battle positions, Zhor roared. But humans didn't attack like other species. They didn't storm in numbers, didn't rely on intimidation. Their approach was always surgical, quiet, and terrifying. The lights flickered out. Darkness swallowed the corridor. Merrick muttered, "They've hacked our grid." Zhor bared his teeth. "We've dealt with worse." He raised his plasma rifle. "Move." But turning a corner, Zhor froze. A mercenary lay against the wall, eyes glassy, a thin blade buried through the armor joint in his neck. Quick, silent, efficient, a calling card. A shadow dropped from the ceiling, tackling 2 mercenaries with impossible precision. Before Zhor could fire, the figure was gone again, melting into the darkness as though it had never existed. The battle devolved into chaos. Gunfire erupted. Screams echoed. Zhor's fighters fired wildly into the shadows. Somewhere deep inside the ship, the humans advanced like specters, unseen until the moment of killing. One of Zhor's lieutenants, a veteran sharpshooter named Calyx, managed to catch sight of a figure moving between the pipes overhead. He fired, hitting nothing. The human dropped beside him without a sound. A flash of steel. Calyx fell. Panic spread faster than orders. Zhor realized too late that every rumor he dismissed was true. These humans were predators in their natural environment: darkness, panic, chaos. He barked into the intercom, "Seal the decks, flood the corridors with stun gas." "Already trying, Captain," replied the engineering officer. "But they've locked us out of several systems." "Override it." "I'm trying." A scream cut through the transmission. Static followed. Zhor cursed violently. By the time he reached engineering, 3 of his crew were dead. The control panels fried. A human crouched over the engineering officer, pulling a small device from the panel. Zhor fired. The human, helmeted, faceless, rolled smoothly behind cover, returned 2 shots, and vanished through a service hatch. Zhor felt fear coiling around his spine. Still, he was stubborn, proud, desperate. He sent the remaining mercenaries in squads of 5. 5 went into a corridor. 2 came back. 1 limped, bleeding heavily. The others simply stared blankly ahead, uttering the same whispered words. They weren't even trying to kill us. They were holding back. The ship's power died completely, plunging everything into emergency dark red lighting. In the flicker, a calm human voice echoed through the station intercom, somehow patched through the Widow's bite systems. "Syndicate vessel. You accepted a contract to kill us? We respectfully request you withdraw. This is your only warning." The voice was steady, unshaken, almost polite. Zhor spat in fury. "Cowards, face us directly." Another voice, female this time, responded, dripping with quiet confidence. "Captain Renn, we've already faced you directly. Check your casualty report." Zhor opened the tally. His blood chilled. 22 casualties. His 30-person crew had been reduced to 9, including himself, and the humans had barely been seen. "Enough," Merrick murmured behind him. "Captain, we must call off the mission. No amount of credits." Zhor struck him across the jaw with one armored hand. "We finish this." But even as he said it, he could feel the inevitability of defeat pressing in around him. Moments later, the lights snapped back on. The human squad stood across the command deck, silent and still. 4 armored figures with weapons raised but not firing. Zhor's remaining crew shrank back. The leader stepped forward, visor retracting to reveal a stern, sharp-featured human woman with piercing gray eyes. "Captain Renn," she said evenly. "I am Commander Arya Vale of Vantage Squad. You are outmatched. Stand down." Zhor raised his rifle with trembling hands. "Never." Arya sighed softly. We won't kill you unless you force our hand. We do not execute misguided enemies, only threats, Zhor fired. Arya moved with inhuman reflexes. A single step, a twist, and the rifle was wrenched from Zhor's arms. She pressed him face first against the console with a force that made his exoskeleton creak. I don't want to kill you, she said. But I need you to understand, this ends now. Zhor snarled, humiliated, terrified. Why? Why spare us? Arya held his gaze, her expression unreadable. Because humans don't pick fights we don't need, but we finish the ones that come to us. She stepped back. Leave this system. Tell the others what happened. Ending. The widow's bite limped away from the narrow veil, heavily damaged, barely functional. Zhor sat in the captain's chair with his shoulders slumped and mandibles drawn tight with shame. 9 survivors, 9 out of 30, all alive only because the humans chose restraint. Back at Lho'karr Station, repairs underway, Zhor disembarked and walked straight toward the mercenary board. Drellis Tor stood waiting. One look at Zhor's haunted posture told him everything. You saw them, the Saurian murmured. Zhor didn't look up. They could have killed us, easily. They didn't. That's the only reason you're standing here. Zhor nodded tightly. Around them, whispers spread quickly. Some mercenaries shook their heads. Others looked quietly relieved that they had refused the contract. Drellis crossed his arms. So, do you understand now why no one takes jobs targeting human special forces? Zhor exhaled slowly. Not just because they're skilled, not just because they're ruthless, it's because they choose not to kill unless they must. And that makes them far more terrifying. Drellis smiled grimly. Exactly. Zhor glanced back at the contract board. Someone had added a new line beneath the pulsing red target. Warning, do not engage. High risk, near zero survival. Zhor chuckled bitterly. Near zero? More like negative. He turned away from the board, knowing he would never again underestimate humans. Not their ferocity, not their morality, not their terrifying efficiency, and certainly not their special forces. As he walked down the busy corridor, mercenaries parted to let him pass, not out of fear of him, but out of respect for the lesson he had learned. A lesson all mercenaries eventually learned. Even alien mercenaries won't take jobs targeting human special forces, because humans were not the weakest species, not the softest, not the most fragile. They were the deadliest survivors in the galaxy, and the smartest killers chose their battles very, very carefully.